Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNoah.com. Hope you had a great Christmas. Happy New Year to you one and all. And, of course, it will not be a Happy New Year for the New Orleans Saints, who are staying home for the holidays and beyond because they didn't make the playoffs by virtue of a disappointing losing season. And in retrospect, Lenny, before they play the Buccaneers, going back and looking at preseason prognostications, the Saints were anywhere, looking at it from the oddsmaker's perspective, the second choice to the sixth choice to win the Super Bowl. So you can make the case that this was the most disappointing performance by an NFL team this season.
Certainly so. And I mean, if you look at the history of this franchise, I would say perhaps outside of 1980, when you were coming on the heels of the first, break-even season in the history of the franchise, and a lot of high expectations that year to go 1-15, I think was, a huge disappointment. That was the introduction of the bags and all of that kind of thing. But, that might be the only one that really compares, I think, in level of disappointment to what we saw in 2014. I think you have to put 2012 in a totally separate category because a lot of that came about before the season started. And while there were expectations, you certainly had, if you will, built-in excuses. This, I'm not sure there were any built-in excuses for what we saw this year for a team that was expected, as you said, to be among the best in the NFL, to be among the favorites to reach the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl, and they will be watching from home. We see it happen every year in the NFL to someone. This year, it just happened to be here in New Orleans.
Well, the Buccaneers, of course, playing for the number one overall draft pick, so will they really want to win the game? We'll see who competes, who wants to play, players playing for jobs perhaps. Sean Payton saying he's sticking with his starters. Now, Lenny, that also has a caveat to it because they have a lot of injuries that necessitated younger players playing, and they have a lot of position changes over the course of the year where younger guys have stepped in or different players have stepped in because of injuries, because of demotions. So they're already playing a lot of those guys, but one name in particular that you and I talked about before we did this was Stanley Jean-Baptiste. If he doesn't play in this game or get active in this game, what message does that send about his future with the Saints?
Not a very good one, I would say. I mean, he's a guy who's been active, I think, for 4 games all year. He has 0 tackles from scrimmage. I think he has 1 tackle on special teams. And this was your second-round pick. Now, there have been guys who have been high picks who have gone on to do things in other years or late in their rookie year, have been kind of late bloomers. But as you and the Sports Noah TV panel talked about on Monday night, this is not a guy who's young per se. He's a 24-year-old rookie. He played 5 years at Nebraska. So it's it's not a guy who you would expect to be a late bloomer just based on that alone. And look, every team has hits and misses when it comes to the draft. I would argue that the best 2014 draft pick on the Saints roster as we come to Week 17 is a guy they didn't even draft in Jalen Saunders. He was a 4th-round pick of the Jets. They gave up on him very quickly after he fumbled 2 punts in the first 4 weeks of the season, bounced around a couple of practice squads, and he has been a bright light in the last month of the season for the Saints.
Yeah, Vinny Sunseri looks like a special teams keeper long-term, and, of course, Brandon Cooks, obviously, but that's not much to speak of for a draft that just happened, so that has to be a significant concern. The New Orleans Pelicans, of course, back in action after the holidays, and the Pelicans have been right around that 500 mark against some good competition. They're in the midst of a swing against a lot of good teams, Lenny, so this is pretty much a proving ground of sorts and also a chance where you can make a statement and also an opportunity where you must stay even, I think, on the ledger, pluses and minuses against these good teams.
Absolutely. And Friday night against San Antonio at home, is the next opportunity to do that. It's going to be interesting to see how Greg Popovich plays this. While the Pelicans will be well rested, if you will, not play Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. The Spurs, one of the marquee teams in the league for a long time, draw the Christmas Day assignment. They will have played. So, this will be the second half of a back-to-back. Popovich notorious for resting his older players for that. Will we even see Tim Duncan? Who knows how that will all play out. And then you've got that one, and then you come back-to-back. You've got a Saturday night game at Chicago, which will be, pretty intriguing for a couple of reasons. One, it's a chance to face one of the better teams in the East. But 2, even though it's Anthony Davis' 3rd year in the league, this is the first time he's getting to play in Chicago. He's missed the first 2 trips to Chicago because of injury, illness, all kinds of different things. One year he took, I think he took an elbow to the eye or something like that, right, the game before. So it's his first chance to go back home and play as a professional. It'll be interesting to see how he responds to that.
College basketball, UNO went to Assembly Hall, a storied facility, got beat by Indiana. LSU continuing to win over College of Charleston, looked good doing so. Tulane, a tough loss, but an impressive loss because they played very competitive on the road at Washington.
Yeah, this is a Tulane team that you really don't know what you've got because of the schedule they've played. They've played a couple of, Power 5 conference teams in Wake Forest and Mississippi State, both at home. Laid an egg early in the year against Wake Forest. Beat Mississippi State, although I'm not sure how good that Mississippi State team really is. A good effort on the road. They've got another top 20 test away from home coming up Sunday against St. John's. It's a good way to kind of segue into American Athletic Conference play. I mean, look, hey, talked about the new year. We're about to head into conference basketball season. LSU and UNO start right after the new year. Tulane opens up their conference schedule New Year's Eve.
We'll be covering it all, following it all at sportsnoah.com. We hope you will follow as well. Lenny, have a great weekend.
You too. We'll see you Monday.
All right, that's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of sportsnoah.com. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.